everyone, my name is Sina Ziae, and today we want to talk about the project represented by the Titan Group regarding analyzing incentives for CCUS projects toward a net zero world. So just to talk about a little bit of the problem statement, the lack of mature carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or as what we call CCUS technologies, coupled with inconsistent standards in carbon offsetting, hinders their effectiveness in addressing climate change. This creates significant challenges for industries, governments, and investors aiming to meet decarbonization goals. Without advancement in CCUS, the global commitment to achieving net zero emission by 2050 is at risk, particularly in light of rising energy demand. This problem affects the ability of heavy industries to comply with emerging regulations, governments to enforce effective climate policies, investors to confidently engage in carbon markets, and ultimately leaving society vulnerable to ongoing climate-related threats, such as global warming, wildfires, ice melting, ocean acidification, and so on. And as we can see, different countries have different effects on the global CO2 emission, in which China is leading in coal, and countries like US, Russia, and others are leading in other fossil fuels. So the aim of this project, as we discussed, is analyzing the factors that are influencing the growth and success of CCUS projects, and also the energy demand by 2050. Is it feasible or not? And as we have different energy demands, we have projected energy demand by 2050. Are CCUS projects feasible in the future? So the project progress is as follows. Basically, we start with data collection. We use 10 different datasets from SP data list, and we added 2 more datasets. We did some data analysis regarding the CO2 emission, carbon markets and credits, renewable energies, and CCUS projects globally, the profits that the companies are making, and so on. And we added some machine learning models like long short-term memories and ARIMA models and linear regression for further analysis and prediction. And also we did some correlation analysis and time series predictions. And as you can see in these figures, we have some predictions for future carbon emission in Canada, Europe, and United States and China. And we know that China is going to have an increase in CO2 emission, while countries like countries in Europe and Canada and USA are actually trying to have a decrease in their carbon emission. And this trend, as you can see. And we have some trend analysis of the CCUS projects and renewable projects globally. So as you can see in this figure, as an example, we have a special rise, a significant rise around 2019 and 2021, in which the number of CCUS projects announced globally are increased. So this announcement does not necessarily means that these projects are actually operational. So as you can see in this figure, a good portion of the projects are actually operational after 2025. So we haven't actually used their capacity to actually do some offsetting in carbon emission. And also we have a rise around 2010 in which the number of the share of renewable energies from the total energy around the world is actually going increased. And right now, around 2023, we're only 14% of total energy around the world is actually from the renewable energy, which needs more in-depth analysis. And some other analysis regarding this are some top companies that are actually working on CCUS projects around the world. And as we can see, different projects are shown here. So around 17% of the projects in CCUS are actually in the power and heat sector. So one of the things that we wanted to discuss was actually finding the most important incentives regarding the CCUS projects. And as we can see here, so in y-axis, we actually have the number of CCUS projects around the world, and and the x-axis here we have the average carbon tax rate around the world. So what we want in the Pearson correlation is that we want these dots, which actually represent countries, to be around this line, but they're not. And this means that carbon tax rate does not necessarily mean higher tax. The carbon tax rate does not necessarily mean that we are going to have more number of CCUS projects, while a policy indicator here, which means countries have more. So the higher we go to the x-axis in this one means countries have more regulations and policies towards carbon emission and having better, going toward a net zero. So these countries are actually near this line here. So it means that policies are actually more important factor regarding having more number of CCUS projects. This one doesn't mean that carbon tax is not effective. It means it's not as important as we think about it. Regulations are more important. Another aspect, as we can see here, countries that are actually having more better credit systems, carbon credit systems, and have better markets, are actually better at having more capacity toward CCUS projects that they announce. So USA and European countries have higher CCUS projects, number of CCUS projects, and have better capacity in capturing, storaging, utilizing carbon, and so on. And they also have better credit markets. So just some of the important regulations that we could find around 2019 and 2021. Some of the examples are actually here that you can see, and these are actually affecting the rise of CCUS projects around the world, and that's why we saw that spike in the number of CCUS projects from 2019 to 2021. So regarding the data that we have by now, the data analysis that we have by now, and also the further analysis that is available in these slides, we have some recommendations. So the carbon tax by itself is not enough towards a net zero world. It's not a good incentive, and it needs other things like regulations and policies about carbon emission. And it's important that global regulations are important. So countries like China, which has about 1/3 of the whole world's carbon emission, they need to be more regulated in regarding emitting carbon. And specific countries like Canada, I know we are actually leading in this kind of area, but having more regulations in a country that is actually creating only 1.5% of the whole world's carbon emission, it doesn't necessarily mean that we can actually have a good effect on the whole world. Our world is one. We share the sky and everything. We share the atmosphere. So countries like China need to be more incentivized, and they need to have more regulations so that, generally speaking, the carbon emission would be reduced. Renewable energy needs to be combined with CCUS projects. And the fact is, as we can see in this data, our model is predicting that by 2050, around 40% of total world's global energy is going to be from renewable energy. In other articles, it's also predicted that it's going to be around 50%. So other 50% of the whole world's energy is going to be other source of energy like fossil fuels and everything. That's why CCUS projects are going to be important in the future, as we need to actually capture carbon and everything. And a better carbon credit system is also really important, as we saw that countries and that have better carbon credit systems actually have better projects and more projects and capacity in CCUS around the world. Some of the references that we use and the datasets that we use are available here, and some of the news actually. These are our team and some further analysis that is available, and you can visit yourself. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.